This is completely unacceptable, Mr. Miller. You cannot ignore our legal rights. This property is subject to HOA rules. You can't just keep us out. We have legal right to access.
I thought the envelope was another routine HOA notice. Then I saw the $650 fine for hunting on land I had owned for decades. The notice claimed my hunting activity violated neighborhood standards. There was just one problem. The land was private property. At the HOA meeting, they acted like they owned every acre around us. I quietly asked them to show me the rule that gave them authority over my private land. The map made the situation obvious. The ranch sat outside the neighborhood's controlled area. A few days later, another notice arrived. This time, the HOA warned that the fine would continue unless I stopped hunting. I decided to verify everything before responding. My ranch worker and I walked the boundary and checked the old property survey. The survey matched the fence line exactly. The hunting area was completely within my private property. I pointed toward the sign and reminded them of one simple fact. This is private property and the boundary is clear. I decided there was no reason to argue at the gate. I called my attorney and organized every document related to the property. The paperwork told a very different story from the HOA notices. My property boundaries had been established long before the neighborhood existed. The HOA still believed pressure would make me surrender. They didn't realize the landowner was already preparing a formal response. We sent the HOA a formal response with the property records attached. The message was simple. The fine had no basis on my private land. For the first time, the room became quiet. The documents made it difficult for anyone to keep pretending the HOA controlled the ranch. But the issue was bigger than one $650 fine. I decided the neighborhood would no longer have access to my private property. Before making the decision final, I reviewed every access agreement. I wanted everything handled properly and clearly. The new policy was straightforward. Private property meant private access. Only authorized visitors would be allowed through the ranch entrance. The HOA returned expecting another argument. Instead, they found a clearly posted private access policy backed by property documents. The HOA woman demanded an explanation. I told her the explanation was already posted on the gate. She finally realized this was a negotiation. The landowner had simply decided who could enter his property. Word spread to the neighborhood quickly. People who had never paid attention to property boundaries suddenly wanted to know what had happened. Now, the HOA board had questions coming from its own residents. Why had they issued a $650 fine over land outside their authority? The board finally reviewed the fine again. The evidence was impossible to ignore. The board reversed its position on the property issue. The $650 fine was no longer the center of the dispute. After the dispute ended, the ranch became quiet again. No more HOA arguments, no more surprise notices, just the land and the life I had built there. That gate became more than a boundary. It became a reminder that clear property lines still matter. I never wanted a fight with my neighbors. I only wanted the same respect for my property that I gave theirs. The HOA started with a $650 fine. They ended up learning that a neighborhood association doesn't automatically control land it doesn't own. And that's how a $650 HOA fine turned into a neighborhood-wide access ban. Sometimes, the strongest response is simply knowing exactly where your property ends. Like, subscribe and tell me, where are you watching from?